Skip it up and that up.
Bioware, I think I'm saying his name right. I looked around and it seems that's how people pronounce it, is an industry veteran. He has worked on games such as Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect Andromeda. He worked on the 2009 version of Wolfenstein. I think that game is criminally overlooked. A lot of people say they don't like it, but I actually had a lot of fun playing it. And he also worked on another game that is criminally overlooked, Singularity. I thought that game was fantastic, but that game also is ignored by a lot of people. So the man has been in the industry for quite a while. He knows what he's talking about, and he's even worked for EA. Again, he's worked on 2 different Mass Effect titles. And he knows that EA is purposely trying to steer away from single-player campaigns and go to multiplayer. Why? Because EA could get more money out of you that way. So he's not shocked that EA shut down Visceral Studios. He was actually on Vice's Waypoint Radio, their podcast, and this is what he had to say. This is definitely a thing inside of EA. They're generally pushing for more open world games, and the reason is you can monetize them better. The words EA use are, have them come back again and again. Why do you care about that, EA? The reason you care about that is because of microtransactions, people buying card packs for Mass Effect games in multiplayer, etc. That's the same reason why we added multiplayer to Mass Effect 3, right? To get people to come back to a thing to just play for 60 to 100 hours. The problem is that we've scaled up our budgets to $100+ million, and we haven't actually made a space for linear single-player games that are under that. But why can't we have both? Why does it have to be one or the other? The reason is that EA and those big publishers in general only care about the highest return on investment. They don't actually care about what the players want. They care about what players will pay for. Those are subtly different things. So what's really happening here with Visceral shutdown is you're seeing a very cynical view, I would say, by EA, and you're going to see this from other publishers as well, in saying this stuff is dead, we need more Battlegrounds and more Rust and Bioware's new game Anthem. EA is trying to make Anthem become their version of Destiny, where they could have loot boxes and microtransactions and consistent DLC packs, so on and so forth. That's really what EA's upcoming game Anthem is about. They want their own Destiny so they can milk their customers dry even more. So that is what you're seeing from a place like Bioware. He's talking about them developing Anthem. Owned by EA, a place where I worked for 7 years. If that's what you're seeing from Visceral now closing and going to this other Vancouver studio. Now Manvier goes on to talk about how single player campaigns may just be on hiatus right now, and he talks about how he feels that Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare is an example of how a genre could be woken back up again, like first-person shooters were woken back up, and he thinks that single-player games in the future, maybe there'll be some huge release that comes out that may bring the single-player campaign back. This is what he had to say about that. I think what it means is that the linear single-player AAA game at EA is dead for the time being. But this, now he's going to talk about Call of Duty. When Call of Duty 4 came out, it reminded everyone that FPS games weren't dead, and we were able to add more linear stuff to Wolfenstein to get it done. So every now and again, there are games that come out to remind everyone that no, they're not dead. If you do everything really well and nail it, you're going to crush it and you'll find an audience. If you look at the games that are being leaders, they don't really follow trends. We have to be able to look at that way and remind ourselves as an industry that we're not just about one type of game and that we can support multiple types of games. If EA is not going to do it, then other people are willing to fill in those gaps and make a bunch of money. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There's a former Bioware developer, aka EA employee, because they're owned by EA, telling you, look, I know pretty much for a fact that EA's whole thing is multiplayer so they can get you to buy loot boxes and microtransactions and more loot boxes and more DLC. He's saying it right there. He worked for the company. He knows. Okay? And look, I guess Visceral was a shady closing by EA. I mean, I already knew this, and I was already very disappointed. I'm tired of EA, not supporting the companies that they own or the studios that they own. But yeah, they don't want single-player games. That's why Visceral's gone. That's why we haven't seen another Dead Space. They tried the whole with Dead Space 3 to make it, cooperative. Even with Dead Space 2, even though it had a fantastic single-player campaign, even back then with Dead Space 2, they tried to attack on multiplayer. It was so dumb, too. I played it like once or twice. I'm like, what is this? But that's the thing. They see with all these other games that are multiplayer, all right, and even their own games, that they could find ways to continually make revenue off of them, because AAA games have astronomically high budgets now. And that's a big problem. These $100 million plus games to develop, investors are like, you need to find a way to get returns on these huge budgets, and you need to find a way to make continual profits on these huge budgets, or we're bailing ship. We're jumping ship, I mean to say. I made up my own phrase. Deal with it. And this is what's happening right now. But it just irks me, man, because I feel like, as an older gamer, I still like playing games online. Look, man, I wasn't that old when online multiplayer became pretty damn relevant back in the PS2 days. You know, it's not like I'm, in my 50s, but I feel that companies like EA and Activision, they don't get it. What they don't understand is there's been so many studies done that show that there's more people that are gamers that are my age, from like their mid-20s to my age, than there are people that are in their teens. But the thing is that they know what they continue to do is cater the games in terms of their monetization for people that are in their teens. Instead of trying to grow their consumer base, because trust me, here is the thing about video games. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but it'll make sense in the end. Is even with all the DLC and all the crap that gets added on now, video games are still a much better deal than going to see a movie at a movie theater. Okay? I mean, yeah, going to see movies cheaper, but think about it. You spend $20, sometimes the ticket alone is about $20, and it may be even higher in that in some places. Then you get a drink, sometimes even just to get like a soda is like $5, and you watch a movie for a couple hours. And you can't even rewatch the movie. If you want to rewatch the movie again, unless you wait till it goes to like $1 theater or something later on, you're going to spend another $20. And it's another couple hours. You buy a game for $60, especially something like Skyrim, and that's a single player game, you're getting hundreds of hours possibly of replay value. So yeah, you're spending more money up front, but you're getting way more entertainment value out of a game. My point being is that from all of these statistics that are done, all these studies that are done, that there's a bunch of people that are gamers that are full-grown adults that aren't just teenagers with a bunch of time on their hands. Why don't you try to make single-player experiences? Because I know people my age, older, and even younger in their mid to late 20s, they just want sometimes an engrossing single-player experience. That's why I'm looking forward to Super Mario Odyssey and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Hell, the developer behind Wolfenstein 2, Machine Games, came out and said, look, we don't think the game needs a multiplayer aspect. We just want to tell an engrossing story and have an awesome single-player experience. And even if the game only ends up being 15 to 20 hours, if I get awesome gameplay out of it and it's a lot of fun, not only will I enjoy it more because they focused on just making a solid, awesome single-player experience, it'll still have replay value to me because I'll want to go back and play it again. I've played through Fear 1 a billion times, and you know what? I could start that game up right now, play it, and not be bored because the gameplay was well done and it's satisfying. I'm telling you, I wish that the companies out there like EA and Activision, I know what Activision did, but you heard about the patent that Activision did, by the way, where they tried to patent technology where when people play multiplayer aspects of their games, that the algorithm will purposely get someone who's a noob up against someone who's experienced, so the noob feels like they have to go out and spend money on microtransactions to get better weapons so they could compete with the more experienced players. It's insane. I just wish that developers would realize that there's an untapped market out there that they're basically ignoring, that they can make a ton of money off of instead of just trying to milk their current consumer base dry with microtransactions and a bunch of DLC. But everyone wants instant returns and they don't want to take any more risks. And right now, everything's about multiplayer. I just hope this is another phase like motion controls and like how everyone was hyping up VR, and maybe people will come back down to their senses and realize there'll always be room for a solid, well-done single-player campaign. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, and to hear more content like this, make sure to subscribe to Review Tech USA.